That distance is what gives power to time. That distance determines the value of a person. That distance is what I bet my life on. That distance is 100 meters.
Togashi is a sprinter. It is what defines him. As a young boy in elementary school, Togashi is well known for his ability to outrun everyone in his entire school, whether that just be casual sprinting in the track field or full-on national sports day events. Togashi has this overwhelming ability to crush every bit of competition involved, his ability as a person being determined on his skill, that all changing when he meets a transfer student named Komiya, who he finds sprinting his hardest. Wild, uncontrolled, feral. Stopping him, Togashi asks him why he is running, to which Komiya responds,
"'Cause it gets blurred." "What do you mean? What's blurred?" "The world. When I run, it hurts more than reality, so it distracts me."
Togashi refutes this by declaring that this coping mechanism of Komiya's is unhealthy, and the only thing that solves every problem is running the 100-meter dash faster than anyone else. Komiya is appalled, and upon hearing the statement, questions if it's possible for him to get faster, and Togashi responds that it is up for him to decide, in which Komiya, with a determined and unwavering stare, states that
"That decision is mine."
100 Meters is a story about two individuals' lives colliding through their shared motivation to become the fastest person to run the 100-meter race and earn it all. Glory, satisfaction, money, fame, pride, all of it. However, it is less a story about the reward from being great and more about the process of becoming immovable, from people putting their anxiety, their fears, their insecurity, their passions, their euphoric, messed up little skulls that are more dopamine dependent than a ketamine-obsessed homeless man that just lit his child's labubu on fire towards a goal. And honestly, it's inspiring watching these people give their all towards a sport out of ego, out of discipline, and honestly even obsession, and it's something that is not specific to 100 meters. There are stories in every corner that are about people chasing their desire for greatness, for invincibility, for the obsession to be the man. And to be honest, these stories have always fascinated me ever since I was younger, even if I didn't realize why they did, likely because at the core, these pieces of media question what it means to find meaning in life after it is over, and if your legacy dating further than your life is more integral than the life lived itself, especially so if that legacy is about your ruin. And all these questions flooded into my mind after watching a couple grown-ass men run 100 meters like their life was on the line. Have you ever played soccer with your life on the line? Have you ever slimed out your homeboy because he skipped his warm-up before the gym and swore Netanyahu made him do it with your life on the line? Have you then fully believed him and killed yourself trying to hit 225? I'm projecting here. Regardless, these stories develop a feeling in me every time I experience them. How did Whiplash convince me that I was not drumming to my fullest potential? How did watching Toji slime out a teenager convince me to work on my health and kill myself trying to hit 225? Why is watching a couple sprinters put their all into their craft inspire me to do the same? The answer is I don't know, so now I'm going to talk about Blue Period. Blue Period follows a student named Tora Yaguchi, who on first glance is a guy who excels at everything he wants to. He's by default popular, he excels in his classes, and even has time to spend with his friends drinking and watching sports with his buddies. However, even despite all of this, he lacks meaning and purpose. Aside from the mundaneness of completing his schoolwork and listening to his friends rant about their work, he finds no meaning or purpose from what he does. There is no passion in anything he accomplishes, that is, until he is assigned an art project for one of his classes, something that he intends to put off as a mere filler assignment alongside his real priorities in school. This perspective shifting when he sees the morning sky of Shibuya in a blue lens, in a melancholic and artistically driven sense, which provides him a feeling of comfort and moves his soul, him completing that art assignment by poorly drawing that perspective of the dawn out of passion, and through this experience realizes that his passion is art, him relentlessly drawing and painting in hopes to get into a prestigious art school that is incredibly competitive, him meeting all sorts of artists with their own different perspectives on what being a great artist means. Blue Period's remaining episodes focus on Yaguchi learning something about art, a new technique, a stroke of a brush, a change of depth of field, a lesson of creativity, him finding these revelations through other art students trying to get into the same university, characters like Takahashi who naturally excel at art changing his perspective on how he approaches his own creative endeavors. However, the big reason why I bring it up is because of a scene later on in the show where Yaguchi, frustrated, states that while he loves art, even though there's nothing in the world that gives him more joy, that passion isn't always enough. It isn't always fun. It's a blessing to do what you love, and these characters are all amalgamations of their continued passions no matter the pushback from their families, but they also realize that passion can only get you so far, which is why Yaguchi continues to draw even more. Persistence to create something rivaling everyone else, the determination to continue his focus of art even if he understands he isn't the most talented and has to work to perfect his craft, his learning understanding of people and the relationship with art and the uniqueness of that relationship per person. All of these aspects drive him to continue picking up that brush. It's euphoric even if it hurts. It's a connection even if it beats you down. All because they hold tightly to that moment when they saw the blueness of Shibuya's sky. This crap low-key inspiring to watch, bro, and ever since I watched it 2 years ago in a randomly rented out apartment that I stayed at after Hurricane Helene KD'd my area, I wanted to talk about it cause look at this, man. A slow-moving anime about a dude wanting to paint. Arguments abound, femboys galore, and passion endlessly flowing out of every pencil whip, bro. All out of hopes that these students can be great enough to attend a place where they will become undeniably impactful. And yet, none of these characters seek fame. They seek fulfillment from knowing that they are creatively limitless. Being great in these characters' eyes doesn't mean fame to them, or even acclaim. It does not matter to them if their art is ever seen. They just want to know themselves that they are foundationally artists to their core and that they are great at what they paint. That ego constantly needing to be sacrificed to be improved upon. Greatness and legacy are often used in conjunction with each other. Hell, I use them in the same manner at the beginning of this video because it's a sick hook, and here you are still watching. However, for a lot of people, the greatness they desire is not one of acclaim, it's one of self-satisfaction. If fame occurs, so be it, but think, man. Throughout history, how many revolutionary people never got the recognition they deserved until their lives had ended? And like, to be honest, not wanting any sense of recognition is low-key kinda insane. That's like if I made this video and never posted it. It's like going on a trip to Cuba and not posting a story. It's like reading the ending of Chainsaw Man and deciding not to voice your opinions. I think I showed my hand a little too early. However, as foreign as not showing off your creation in today's world is, it's actually kind of normal. How many things do you want to improve upon but you don't voice that desire aloud in conversation? How many talents and hobbies do you pour your time into that you don't tend to lead a conversation with because there's no need for an audience for you to enjoy investing into them? For Yaguchi, for characters like Takahashi and Ryuji, they aren't drawing for fame, they are drawing for self-fulfillment, for their own ability to call themselves great even if they will never be recognized for it. Who cares for fame and glory when the only reason they picked up a brush was so that they can understand themselves just a little better? If no one sees that painting, does it mean that the painting never was created? Does that mean it ever mattered? It doesn't have to matter to others. Nobody will see Yaguchi's initial drawing of the blue sky of Tokyo, but who cares? It was never made for others' approval. It was made because he saw something he wanted to portray and actualize, and he did it, man. But then if that was all there was to this conversation, the video wouldn't have several more minutes in the runtime, would it now, about stories where the people in it want all the glory that comes with being great and famous. I like the drums. Back of Mongolian, Chop Squad, and Whiplash are relatively similar in regards to the fact that both of them are about making music. Whiplash focusing on a drummer's determination to become the best jazz drummer in the world in hopes of approval from an abusive conductor, and Beck focusing on a ragtag group of teenagers' goal to become a recognized rock band. And full disclosure, yes, these stories are more in essence about becoming great rather than becoming recognized. Andrew is focused on becoming the best jazz performer in the world, and with that, confirmation from Fletcher. Kayuki is focused on being a skilled singer and guitarist that can be accepted and recognized by Ryusuke. Stories about music have always clicked with me personally due to my background with the piano and my instrument of choice, the drums. What I love about playing music is not only the ability that you have that allows people to vibe on your wavelength, but also the unique aspect that enables you to customize whatever song you are playing to your style. The drums for me being that creative expression. However, unlike the characters of Blue Period, while yes, there is a semblance of self-satisfaction they want to achieve, they are motivated largely by recognition both from their mentors and asshole conductors, but also from the world on a whole. Andrew even stating to his family that he would rather die broke, young, and wasted and be remembered for centuries rather than live a long life and nobody remember who he was. For these characters, their legacy is dependent on how long their names will be remembered, how impactful their work will become, how integral to people's lives their music would be. Beck is largely made up of young teenagers still in high school, people with full-time jobs, unemployed dudes that like fishing and cardio type shit, but also is made up of a group of people that want something more for their lives, that want to perform on a stage where people sing their songs alongside them for their names to be remembered, to become a hit in America, regardless if that is even possible for them. It isn't about the money for them. They are fine with being broke till the day they die. They don't care if their own lives fall apart before their eyes. Love, attachment, relationship, memories, none of them compares to the absolute pride you get from seeing someone else envy your creation. Remember your name when it is brought up in conversation, when you are idealized. For them, anyways, I'm sure a good majority of us would get absolutely terrified knowing their name gets brought up in conversations that they aren't even a part of. For them, the crowd drives them, not out of selfish praise, but because they want the world to know that whether they like them or not, they are undeniably the best at what they do. In a semblance, what drives them is ego. Man, that's a pretty great transition. I should totally keep that in and not ruin it with like another sentence or edit or something. Okay, so you might be thinking to yourself, clearly with the examples that this dude has used, he likes anime and manga, and that would be correct, I'm broke as hell. Now he's talking about ego, that is correct. He is going to reference Blue Lock. I have now watched Blue Lock. Although that would probably be a great depiction of ego, I have not seen or read Blue Lock, so if you clicked on this video hoping to God that Blue Lock would appear, sorry bro, check out this video from Alex instead. It's fire and will likely scratch that itch. Speaking of itches, Timothée Chalamet gets spanked in 4K. Ego is a fascinating thing to look at. When people talk about the GOATs, there's this idea that circulates that they aren't just famous, they aren't just good at what they do and have a passion for it, they know that they are the best in the world. Those individuals fully understand what they want to achieve and they determine their self-worth through that achievement, to the point of when they do make that happen, they fully understand that they are on top of the world in their area of expertise. LeBron is the GOAT of opposition. Dennis Rodman is the best rebounder of all time. Marty really loves telling a story about Jews eating honey off of each other's pubes. I mean, is the GOAT of ping pong, taking it like a good boy. Their ego is everything to them. Their pride is their life. Their status is their identity. And notice how you can see how every example I've listed out is related to sports, and that's because it's so fundamentally unique in how those attributes are displayed. There is a reason why characters in sports manga are often based around impactful players from that sport. Nomiya is designed and obsessed with Kobe Bryant, choosing to emulate his afro and later shaved head. Rock Lee is a personified Bruce Lee. Sakuragi is heavily modeled and inspired by Dennis Rodman and the insane antics both of them would get up to, both being fueled by the crowd's emotions. The cheers, the boos, the slurs from the stands, and the outbursts from the crowd only exist to fuel these people, these players, these legends of the modern day. And you can see that ego dwelt within every single player, that pride in knowing that you will do everything you can to win because failure is not an option for your spirit. And what I love with sports specifically is that that pride is shared among the people that root from the stands. The New York Knicks versus the San Antonio Spurs had the entirety of New York ready to take home the win. People were saying how they were willing to cheat on their girls, suck some dick, and burn down New York for a championship, not because they fully believed that they were going to win, but because the sheer pride of that chance occurring gave them something to cheer for, something to unite for. Me and some buddies traveled to New York recently and was surprised on how nice people were, how full of life the city was, and how genuinely united the populace was. And in hindsight, we went a week before the game. We were seeing a false New York because when they lost one game, they started sliming out Spurs fans, but it's okay. It's okay. Because the Knicks stats are up, baby! But I bring up this recent event because I think it shows a huge reason why we watch sports in general. To root for something and to feel at least a semblance of glory even when we are on our bum ass watching TV.
Yo, you shut your bum ass up.
We are the populace cheering for those aspiring to be something more than they are, to be the best in the world. And there are numerous stories, sports related or not, that focus on characters allowing ego and pride to determine their self-worth in actions. Characters like Satoru Gojo allow that ego and pride to be conveyed in every moment due to him being dubbed the strongest. Virgil in his constant search for endless power so that he can prevent atrocities ever happening to him again. Trixie from My Little Pony and being an asshat, Light Yagami and his growing belief of himself as a god. These are characters that know they are on top and fully allow ego and their pride to control their directions, some in actualization of their success and others to their downfall. But what is so also undeniable is that these kind of people are so much fun to watch.
This that new season 10, this that fucking leave it in, this that pull up blow, that nigga they high like 5 out the gym. Okay, these niggas in trouble, it's fuck 'em, I'm finna expose them, they 2 undercover. My daughter, my missus, I can't up a dinner, a blood in my sucker. These niggas suckers, they weed and we pull up in business and beat the fuck out of them in public. How they go crazy just running, they hear me like I had to stop walking the water to hover. Hold on.
And all of this sounds great until greatness asks for something in return. There's always this question that has been at the forefront of being great, and that's simply, what is the cost? Nothing worth having comes bacon. I just didn't want to say easy. I don't want to say the quote. And that's something that has always sat weird with me. When does the price of becoming great at something outweigh the thing itself? Is the achievement you want worth losing the things you already have? And for many, I can imagine that the answer was no, and thus those stories of legends, those people that declined the transaction, those names were never brought to light. However, you have to wonder if they lived more fulfilling lives than those that gave up everything. Andrew Neiman prioritizes his goal of drumming to the point of where he cuts ties with his long-term girlfriend because he believes she will get in the way of his dream, even sacrificing his final chance of normalcy to prove himself once more to Fletcher. Marty sacrifices every relationship he ever forms as a tool to dispose of so that he can be certain that he is the best ping pong player in the world. Griffith, you know what? I'm not retelling Griffith's atrocities. He isn't worth it. I'll piss on the panels if I have to illustrate my point. These stories might end mostly with their happiness seemingly being found in their new achievements, but I don't think any of these stories are tales to live by, but as cautions to avoid. To not let your own identity, your own existence be swept away in the constant feeling of inadequacy that can only be cleansed by chasing satisfaction, when at the end of it all, the realest questions that might run through your dying brain might end up being, I wonder if I never broke up with her. What if I focused on the memories I could remember rather than chase a legacy I won't even be able to fully experience due to my own mortality? You don't just sacrifice your time or effort. If not cautious enough, you can sacrifice everything. In 100 meters, both Togashi and Komiya's lives take different turns. Togashi temporarily retires from running to pursue a normal high school life before his passion is reignited by club sports, with him running with purpose and intentionality due to his declining performance. He learns to make friends and love running again, all until years later he ends up with a muscle strain that jeopardizes his now running career, his agency informing him of the fact that they will terminate his contract if he cannot run competitively again in the upcoming season. Togashi is understandably conflicted. He's always had this natural talent with running. It's the only way he knows how to bond with people now, and without it, he's unfulfilled and scared of his future, even channeling that fear into a full breakdown at a park in front of children. However, through all this time, Komiya has lived and experienced enlightenment, using his anxiety and fear of losing as a motivator to run ever more diligently, going from chaotic and feral as a runner to a precise movement god. Anxiety is a feeling one gets when they challenge themselves. Your body is just a bunch of cells. Sacrifice it all for a moment of glory. This is the mindset that Komiya, through his mentor's guidance, has taken into his soul, and it has propelled him tremendously, running being his whole reason for being, to the point that now he poses a serious challenge to Togashi. However, with Togashi's injury, he wonders if it is even worth him sacrificing his entire career and life at one final attempt to best Komiya. They are two very different sides of the coin with two different reasons for running, but ultimately they share the same goal they had as kids: to run the 100 meters faster than anyone else. The question then becomes, will Togashi sacrifice his future just as Komiya has sacrificed his past? I'm ready to talk about Chainsaw Man now. Okay, so here's a side note. There is a reason why Chainsaw Man Part 2 is being brought up in relation to this video's topic that we will get into. However, Chainsaw Man has recently ended, and so I figured now is a good time as any to briefly discuss my thoughts on Chainsaw Man Part 2 without making another hour-long video about it. If you don't want to see that and just want me to get to the point, here's the time to skip to, okay, if you are still here, I want to briefly ramble about Part 2. Okay, so as a whole, I really like Part 2 of Chainsaw Man. I think Denji and Asa are great antagonists, and the dynamic added by Yoru is also a great addition, and I also really love the dynamic between all three of these characters. I think the art is, while inconsistent, really creative and at times can be incredible. The action is insane and creative and a lot of fun, sometimes even more so than part 1, and I also think that the themes of part 2 covers are really fascinating. The cycles we put ourselves in, the constant seeking for external validation, fame, addiction, guilt over the past, and if achieving your dream can provide real satisfaction, well, it's in the video for a reason! I really love the general plot. I like the way war is conveyed here. I love how frustrating Denji is. I love how complicated Asa is. I love the chaos, and most importantly, I love how there are still human moments throughout the story that remind you that Chainsaw Man isn't about devils killing other devils, it's about a boy and now a girl wanting a normal life. But not really, as we will see in a bit. Now that said, this is not a perfect story like part 1. Aside from Denji, Pochita, Asa, and Yoru, most of the side characters are underutilized and underexplored, which is a shame considering that part 1's side cast was much more impactful and easy to care for with 45 less chapters than part 2. I was really excited to see Yoshida be more prominent. He was one of my favorite side characters, but it felt like after a while, Fujimoto got bored with him and then just blew him up. There are promises in its narrative setup that are not delivered. The art, especially near the end, is inconsistent, although it can show signs of greatness, and then that ending it's a choice. So for those unaware, Chainsaw Man seemed like it had around 20-ish more chapters before part 2 was ready to end, several people believing part 2 would come after, for all of a sudden it being announced within one chapter that the following chapter would be the end of the series, people losing their minds over how this man was gonna wrap the series up. And I remember seeing this panel and seeing this text and thinking that Fujimoto was on freaking crack. 2 weeks later, that chapter came and people were ready to kill Fujimoto. Some sent death threats, some put this man on some Megami level fraud watch, some even said that it would have been better for part 2 to have never happened. And listen, do I think the ending is a masterpiece? Hell no. Do I think it's great? Also not, but I do like it. I am satisfied. Yeah, I don't like the timeline reset stories, and Fujimoto pulled that, and yeah, it's a really cheap way to wrap things up in a short amount of time, but here's the thing. Ever since I read his last serialized manga, Fire Punch, I knew whenever Chainsaw Man ended, people were gonna be pissed off. It's just the way he ends things. He does so in a way that makes you wonder why it existed. However, I think the message of part 2 sticks because of this ending. Life is full of good and bad, and so are the dreams you aspire to hold on to. When you dream of something, after achieving it, what do you dream of next? When will you finally stop destroying yourself for your dreams? Does satisfaction come from being more than who you are? I like part 2 a lot. It's not perfect, but I like it. Okay, now it's time to talk about it in context of the video. Thanks for letting me ramble. Chainsaw Man is ultimately a story about a lot of things. How beautiful things and tragedy both shape life. How addiction can cause ruin. How the simple joys of life, such as family and even jam on bread, will forever be more fulfilling than following your ambition. But also how in this context, that chase of glory can ruin people, Denji being the main example of that element. Denji, at the start of the story, has nothing. He has a ton of debt, he is dying, and has nobody except for his pet chainsaw dog, his only dreams being to eat better food, hug a girl, and live a normal life. Something that becomes a reality for him after being rescued by the Yakuza clan by Makima, after Denji and Pochita fuse into one devil-human hybrid to save Denji's life. And throughout the story, Denji's dreams become more prevalent. He wants to touch some honkers, he wants to get laid, he wants to have true intimacy with another individual, and after watching people say his name and cheer for him through a television, decides at the end of part 1 story that he wants to beat Chainsaw Man rather than Denji, deciding to forego that earlier wish of a normal life he desired at the beginning of the story. However, something to keep in mind is that this wish is influenced by others. Makima only saved him because of his powers as Chainsaw Man, altered his brain chemistry to manipulate him easily through sexual gratification, and even with Makima defeated, part 2 starts off with Denji wanting to live both lives. He wants the life with his recently adopted sister Nayuta, where he can live a normal school life but also can't deny the thrill of being a celebrated hero of hell. He doesn't want to be Chainsaw Man to save other people's lives. He lets people die intentionally just to save a cat that was in peril. He wants to be Chainsaw Man because he has been conditioned to believe that people love Chainsaw Man, not Denji. He wants to be loved. His dream is to be cared for, and Chainsaw Man gives him a taste of that through glory and fame. And so when he is forced to either quit transforming into Chainsaw Man or have Nayuta killed by public safety to either live the high of Chainsaw Man or live the normal life he initially wanted those years ago, he tries to negotiate both, but after failing, decides to live a normal life free of the mantle that is Chainsaw Man. That was his dream after all, but it's now hollow. his dream has been realized. But then when the city becomes a warfield and Pochita asks him what he wants to dream of next, he responds that he wants to be Chainsaw Man. He wants that high. He is an addict that is clinging to the one thing that he knows people adore, and as soon as he makes that decision, his house burns to the ground alongside Meowie, Power's old cat, and Nayuta dies at the hands of a mob. His obsession with fame and glory and his dreams of ambition ultimately kills his chance at having a family and an honest-to-God relationship with others. Several chapters later, the world ends and is ultimately reset, but what I find interesting is that Pochita tells Denji in a dream that being Chainsaw Man isn't helping him anymore. He's clinging to that ambition, to that dream, and it's destroying his desire for satisfaction. His dreams are ruining him, which is why in this reset timeline, we see Denji at peace. He lets go of the last remnants of Chainsaw Man to form a real human connection. I don't think Chainsaw Man's ending message is chasing your dreams will only leave you hollow and empty, but I think this is Fujimoto's way of saying that it's okay to not be great sometimes. Sometimes it's okay to just be human. It's a different coin compared to what we've seen, compared to all these stories about bettering your craft, about having people witness you and understanding you are the best at your skill. And with all that, Chainsaw Man's inclusion in this video, especially with its message of how ambition can be addictive, is something that seems very opposite to this idea of greatness. That idea that maybe greatness and glory, if all we are seeking, can leave us hollow, especially so if we leave behind the relationships we cherish for it, seeming contradictory to everything I've said in this video. However, Denji was never seeking to be great at something. He was just seeking a form of connection, something that Chainsaw Man was parasocially giving him. That realization, however, is something that he learns and forgets time and time again. I've seen people call Denji in Part 2 a stilted character because for every time he progresses and realizes his mistake, he goes back to those mistakes, hoping for a different outcome, becoming just as damaged as he was previously. And it's frustrating to watch. And for a while, when I was reading Part 2 weekly, I was beginning to think of this as an issue, as a flaw of the series. However, I think it's there to tell a point. Even when you recognize your failing ability to perform or to resist the problems and addictions you know are robbing you of happiness, doesn't mean that you are able to persevere past them effortlessly or immediately. And I feel for Denji, you know? I understand this emotion of knowing you're doing something wrong but not knowing how to course correct. Why am I trying to get laid when my family is missing? Why am I always thinking by impulse? Why can I not make a real connection? Why can I not play on measure? Why am I dragging? Why am I rushing? Why can I not creatively paint something new? Why can't I run as fast as I used to? Why can't I not fly the freaking plane? Okay, I think I let my personal life get in there accidentally as I say it like it's not part of the script. Okay, at the risk of the FAA slamming me out brutally, I've mentioned in the past how I enjoy flying, and I've been doing it for a while. For the better part of my teenage life, I've learned how to fly planes at a local flight school. I flew my first plane when I was 14, I did my first solo at 16, and I got my license right out of high school, and I love flying, man. Everyone has their own special connection with aviation, and for me, that connection is one of serenity. There is no calmer feeling for me than being in the air by myself, looking at the world I call home below. However, there were times, and hell, can still be times in my training for my instrument and commercial ratings where I get frustrated at my performance, at my ability to fly planes. And I understand in aviation hell, when learning anything, there at some point is going to be moments of regression, of going backwards in your progress, even if you don't know why. And for me, this happened recently while I was taking flight lessons this earlier semester. I could not perform a proper flare before landing, something that helps those landings seem professional and smooth. I couldn't set up for maneuvers properly. I couldn't fly as well as I could, and it pissed me off, especially because, well, dude, I've been doing this for years now. I have been flying longer than I've been driving at this point. It should be ingrained into my DNA. It's not like I haven't been flying. It's not like I can't do it. I did this last week. It was so on my conscience that I almost considered making an evil version of this video instead, titled Stories About Failure. But as soon as I started questioning my ability to recover, I took the weekend off and came back on Tuesday and flew completely fine. Like completely fine. What the heck? And look, scientifically, it's a response to stress, to loss of life in the family, to burnout, all of which I was experiencing at the time. But to me, I was pissed that I couldn't do what I could at the time, and I didn't even know where to start improving. And in a way, these stories about these people gave me comfort that I was not alone. Yaguchi's creativity ran dry temporarily, causing him to make variations of the same painting, something that he had to break out of. Neiman and Koyuki had to persevere out of a musical slump. Denji was really conscious of his addictions and problems and then was really freaking horny. But ultimately, part of what I think makes these stories relatable and encouraging is that the people that find themselves in these moments continue to try and push forward, to get out of that slump, to prevent the regression, and to continue the lifelong goal of what they want to be great at. Becoming great isn't a walk, it's not a sprint, it's not a goal. It's a climb up a mountain. Hey, do you like hiking? Ever since I moved to the mountains, I have loved hiking. It's a great bonding experience and it makes me feel and look productive, which is why a manga called The Climber fascinated me when I first heard about it. And listen, I suck at climbing things to begin with. I mean, I rock climb, don't get me wrong, but I suck ass at it, but I also still enjoy it. And so upon picking up the manga, I noticed that it's written strangely at first, more focused like a shonen sports manga. Main character named Mori is a silent type. He doesn't want to rely on anyone. He's edgy and dark and he has jet black hair. He joins a club to get better. He has a typical bully rival character that wants to impress women and says strange things to others. And overall, it's a typical shonen story narrative with the sole exception that the art feels monumentally crafted, like an inner journey of the soul rather than just a sport. Moments of free climbing are depicted like these inner workings of the human spirit. Flashbacks are depicted in this dreamlike haze. Snowfall is depicted like a ghost of nature. However, the main storyline is mostly just a typical sports shonen about depending on others, and this is because there were two separate creators working behind the series. The artist Shinichi Sakamoto and writer Yoshio Nobita, with Nobita leaving Sakamoto all in the dust to finish the series himself after 3 volumes. Sakamoto having an entirely different vision for the manga in his mind after his departure. Yoshio wanted the series to clearly be a shonen, something like Slam Dunk. However, Sakamoto desired to tell a story based off of Kato Buntaro, an infamous free climber who was dedicated to free soloing the tallest peaks in the world. And so to shift from the current shonen stereotype, he kicks off this new direction by having Mori climb a mountain in a blizzard, with the teaching head of the climbing team trying to find him and save him. And then he just freaking kills the teacher by getting his head blown off by a boulder. He was so sick of this. From this point on, the series has a sudden flash forward where Mori has a job, but still, despite all that, has the inner desire to feverishly climb alone. And when The Climber was written like an average sports shonen, this idea of climbing alone was often shunned, often deemed too dangerous to be viable. However, Sakamoto used this idea to actually propel this journey of inner reflection. You see, the rest of The Climber is primarily focused on Mori's efforts to climb K2, the hardest and most brutal mountain in the world. And although most people would not think once about attempting that, for Mori, he has no other desire. He's not looking for friends or connection or fame, but rather to find the euphoria of being alive through climbing mountains that could lead to his death. And through the story, people are baffled with why Mori desires to do this, why he has this desire to climb a mountain, and although he doesn't give much of an answer due to his personality, you see his answer in his eyes. For him, he climbs because his very soul tells him to. His very being screams at him to ascend the peaks of K2. And for every single person, they are baffled by this inner desire, even more so than they are his capability to do so. But in Mori's mind, the question isn't why he has the desire, it's just a simple question of why is he not on the mountain in that current moment. It's like you don't ask a talking fish why it has the desire to swim. No, you ask it why the hell it can talk. And although that's a weird analogy, it's reflective of how Mori views these people's perspectives on his desire for the east of K2. Why does it matter when he's drawn to the mountains when he has the unique ability to climb them and potentially survive? His idea of greatness isn't becoming a legend, it's his clinging to the rocks and holds that preserve his life. Just like an inspirational penguin on social media or a person eating food to survive, Mori scales mountains not because he wants recognition, but because his soul starves if he doesn't. He looks to the mountains and like a child to a crayon, a penguin to a landscape, a person to a track, he fulfills that longing. In 100 meters, Togashi decides to risk everything on one final race against Komiya. This final challenge between rivals and arguably friends through running meaning everything to him. The film takes its time showing what the characters involved are doing before the race itself. Hopping on the train, tying their shoes, stretching, contemplating this very race. These moments leading all the way till the blank is fired, in which, with only the sounds of effort and cleats hitting the track below, watch the final race, which narrows in with Togashi and Komiya running neck to neck, pushing themselves to their absolute limits. And what I find interesting is that the movie ends on this race between them, but never reveals who wins. The film's very last cut showing their expression of fulfillment. And in this final scene, I think 100 meters not only details the message of its runtime, but the entire conclusion of the schizophrenic video with yay edits today. Greatness is defined by a multitude of emotions and experiences. One of fame and pride, those of discipline and obsession, those of recognition and also destruction. However, greatness is not a status. It's a desire, like a burning flame where water acts as gasoline. Yaguchi finds self-understanding through his journey in art because he was drawn to a canvas in a classroom. Kayuki saw someone play the guitar and was drawn to become a musician. Mori saw a mountain in the distance and, like an animal driven by instinct, had the intense desire to scale it. Togashi and Komiya saw a field and wanted to run. Greatness was never a position. It's a human desire.
But is there a line? You know, maybe you go too far and you discourage the next Charlie Parker from ever becoming Charlie Parker?
No, man, no. Because the next Charlie Parker would never be discouraged.
As toddlers, we wanted to be everything all at once because we believed we could. I want to be an astronaut, a roller coaster engineer, a Shamu trainer, and although we got older, there are still those that held on to those dreams of ambition because their soul would starve without them. Who would they be without the things that make their lives worth living? At the end of the day, the decision to pursue that longingness for greatness is yours alone. Hello there, friendly strangers on the internet. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you sticking around to the end of the video and welcoming me back from my sabbatical. Took forever, but we ball. Your boy is now going back to college in about a week, which likely means I'm finna ghost y'all again. Now, but on a serious note, I appreciate you guys that come and watch my stuff after all this time in between uploads. I'm already cooking up some scripts, so hopefully it won't take another 8 months to release a single. But sincerely, thank you guys so much for watching this. It means the world to me. Anyways, outside of videos, I've been playing through the Resident Evil games, and they're sick, bro. Such good horror mechanics, and 4 makes me feel like I'm a badass. Until then is a beautiful game. Play that thing, bro. It is so good. Anyways, I'd yap about my life longer, but I'm going on a vacation in like 6 hours, so I'm gonna wrap up the ramblings. Let me know how you guys are, and as always, take care of others, and I will see you all next time.